Hello everybody, my name is Antoine. I've been invited to challenge the topic of this summer school, and for the sake of challenging, I've chosen a slightly provocative title for my keynote. Temprius has been, what's next? Before talking about the what's next, I'll invite you to a quick insight into my personal story. Back in 2009, I wanted to create a small island of utopia in Brussels. It was supposed to be a solitary, playful and beautiful village within the city. My vision was clear. All I needed now was to figure out how, and most importantly, where to start this project. I found a solution in using a resource that can be found for free in the streets: empty buildings. Since then, I've developed a passion for discovering empty buildings and using them to experiment new ways of city making. This passion became my job when I started to work for Comuna 5 years ago. Comuna is a non-profit organization which is active in the field of social temporary use of empty buildings in Brussels. The project started 8 years ago when 5 students were dreaming of living in a different way. They discovered the practice of temporary use, and after a lot of research and mingling, they were given the opportunity to occupy a huge tower of 8,000 square meters. Many people started to use that space, and a tight community grew out of this activity. In 2016, after having occupied some more buildings, 4 of the founders decided to launch a professionalized version of Comuna, which would offer the service of temporary use to fellow citizens. Today, we are a team of 19 people working full-time on the project. And so far, we have occupied over 20 buildings of all types, such as houses, garages, villas, office spaces, hangars, and so on. We always make sure to include diverse activities in our occupations, as we believe that this creates a fertile environment for everybody to grow. Usually, we proceed as follows. We find an empty building. We sign a contract with the owner that allows us to occupy the building for free for no less than 2 years. We renovate the building to put it back to a functional state. Parallel to this phase, we get to know the neighbors, their needs and desires. After this, the occupation can begin, and we host social and cultural projects that fit the neighbors' needs and desires, such as housing, artists, makers, recyclers, youth associations, sports or food-related projects, and so on. Once the contract comes to an end, we deliver the building well-maintained and empty back to the owner. On top of developing and managing social temporary use projects in Brussels, we are active on 2 more levels. The first one is that we advise municipalities in Belgium and France when they face issues with empty neighborhoods. The second one is that we lobby on a local as well as European level for a rational use of empty spaces, since we believe that they can serve as leverages to dynamize the city as well as to build fairer cities. So far, so good, but now let's have a look at the flip side of our practice. Today, we are seriously questioning whether temporary use in the long run might have a negative impact on our city. I'd like to specifically mention 2 challenges that we might be facing. The first challenge is connected to a reflection that was shared with us a few years ago by Stephanie Raab, who is the founder of the temporary use platform Copolis. Stephanie has been active in temporary use for over than 20 years in Berlin, notably by working in the now well-known neighborhood of Kreuzberg. She has come to the conclusion that temporary users create social and cultural added value with their work, but yet constantly lose the economic added value that comes with it. The second challenge is gentrification. The process of gentrification usually starts with creative people moving into a neglected neighborhood. The neighborhood's attractivity rises, new people move in, and the municipality invests extensively in the development of its infrastructures. This usually ends up in rents that increase so much that the original inhabitants of the said neighborhood cannot afford it anymore and are forced to move away. At Comuna, we wonder whether we, as trendy temporary use actors, are a part of this cause that kicks off the gentrification process. With those two challenges in mind, we wonder, how can we catch that economic added value that we create when we temporarily use a building? And how can we radically restrain gentrification? On one hand, we lose the economic added value because the owner gets it once we leave the building. On the other hand, we cannot prevent gentrification because by not being owners, we cannot set the rents. Today, what we see as a real solution to these challenges is that we start owning buildings ourselves. While we keep creating islands of utopia in Brussels thanks to the practice of temporary use, we want to develop the practice of permanent or durable use. We envisage this by joining forces with other social actors as well as citizens to gather enough capital to buy buildings, and ideally entire neighborhoods at some point. Together with a bunch of European actors, we are exploring several methods to make this possible. Among others, we consider the temporary emphyteosis or lease in perpetuity, the community land trusts, or the gathering of actors into housing cooperatives. Either way, our aim is to first withdraw all the buildings that we buy from the speculative market. This measure is taken forever thanks to special clauses added to the status of the buying entities. Second, we want to systematically redistribute the economic added value to the people who create it. This happens by providing them either with ownership of a part of the building, a salary, or access to space. Third, we want to restrain gentrification by controlling the rents as owners. It is possible to improve the quality of life in a neighborhood while making the original inhabitants benefit from it. Fourth, influence the making of the city. By becoming owners, or a cooperative of owners, or a network of cooperatives of owners, we will become actors of weight that politicians will have to listen to. And with all that, we hope to crack the making of our city to turn it into a solidary, playful and beautiful place for everyone. I hope that this presentation has brought some food for thought to kickstart your summer school. And just before leaving you for good, I would like to invite you to take 1 minute to imagine what kind of small island of utopia you would create in your city. Enjoy and keep dreaming awake.